As we look to our lives, um, the story to me is about accounting for what we have, um, and leaving the mechanics, how God does what God does, up to God. Trusting that God has it figured out and that I don't have to. What do we have? Maybe it isn't something physical. Maybe it's a story of struggle, a story of trying to hold it together, a story of failure, a story of loss, a story of harm, a story of good, a story of hope, a story of redemption. Maybe these stories are our cisterns, and we so often hold our lives in one hand and create this whole different narrative for this narrative that God is bigger, that God is more enough, and then I have these stories that I hold. And our invitation is to ask, what do these stories have to say to my own journey? What do these stories have to say to this trust in God, that God is more than enough? Somewhere in this, I think me and my friend Gary on this call, we talk a lot about is embracing the mystery, which is a word you find a lot in the New Testament. Embracing the mystery. How does God turn the water into wine? How does that happen? Maybe it isn't for us to know how God takes our meager and transforms them into more than enough. Maybe it isn't our job to conceive or to figure out or understand or to manipulate God. Or to take a sign that demonstrates God's glory, but simply just to trust that there's always more than enough, even when it seems in our present reality that there isn't. And our belief and our trust is understanding this is who our God is maybe our transformation. I've been reflecting this past week. Been reflecting this past week of how I arrived here in North Carolina from Florida. But I had moved up here on a whim to be near to my wonderful now wife, who was then my girlfriend at the time. But moved up here on a whim, had very little money, and needed to get a job very fast. And the first month, I had applied for a couple of jobs, and it was going nowhere. Actually, I got turned down from a job, a youth ministry job that I really wanted, and I really wanted to stay here to be near to Kia, and but the money was running out, and I didn't have a job. So it was looking like I was going to have to go back to Florida and go back to somewhere where I could get back on my feet. And we were having a conversation on a couch in this apartment. And I think I was playing around like, all right, I need to start plotting. I want to be here. I want to live here. But I think I need to start plotting my next steps to get back to Florida or to something. And within that moment, there was a phone call, and I didn't know who it was from, but they left a voicemail. And a job that had turned me down had called me back and said, "Hey, you know what? You actually got the job." And I went from this place of despair to this immediate place of hope. I don't say that like every situation of our life ends up like that in this crazy way, but for me, that was a moment where God was more than enough, or where I felt like God was taking care of me and that I could trust God. I don't understand the mechanics of how things line up. So as we look into our lives, as we think about what we do not have enough of, my hope and prayer is that we find some way of entrusting God, who always, in some mysterious way, gives us more than we thought we needed. Not apart from the stories that we hold, but in the midst of those stories. And He makes them more than enough.